On this week's episode of Lessons I Learned in Law, I'm joined by Jim Reid. Now, Jim is Chief Legal Officer at a company called Fortis, which is a utilities business in North America, headquartered in Newfoundland, and really proud of its roots. Jim's based in Toronto, and we crossed paths at the ACC CLO conference earlier this year in Barcelona, and it was then I was chatting to Jim, and he's made a move which I hear so often people craving for. So he was a partner in a corporate team in a law firm, Davies, in Toronto, and he moved in house, made the switch at partnership level into his first general counsel role, and landed the position at Fortis. So in this episode, we'll hear about how he made that switch, how it all came around, and packed with tips for people in similar positions. We also hear about how important it is to build resilience earlier on in your legal career to help shape you for future moves, and to build you up to be used to the rigors of working in private practice and in-house. So loads in there to unpick, and I hope you enjoy. Today's episode of Lessons I Learned in Law is proudly brought to you by Wordsmith AI. Now, Wordsmith AI is redefining how in-house legal teams automate routine tasks and repetitive tasks like contract review and internal requests, so that you and your legal team can work strategically and work on proactive projects. They're an Edinburgh-based startup. They're one of the UK's fastest growing startups, and at a really exciting time in their growth journey. They're showing how technology, AI, and talent as a combination can really build the modern in-house legal team. So find out more by heading over to wordsmith.ai. Nice to take the time. Thank you for joining me. Where am I speaking to you from today?
Thank you, Scott. It's great to be here. Today I am in Toronto, which is where I live. We have an office here, although my company's headquarters is in St. John's, Newfoundland, in the northeast corner of North America, quite close to London, actually.
Yeah, on the flight track, definitely. I've given a brief introduction as best as I can, a bit about your background, but it would be great if you could just start by sharing a bit about your current role and the business that you work for over in Toronto.
Sure. Well, like I said, Fortis is a Canadian company. We're based in this small province of Newfoundland. We are the only public company headquartered in that province, and it's a great story because the company was built by this group of kind of plucky Newfoundlanders, many of whom came from incredibly small communities. If you haven't been to Newfoundland, I don't know, think Ireland, but Newfoundland's known as the Rock. It is a scraggy, rugged, beautiful place, and the people are wonderful, just wonderful. A lot of the culture is fantastic. A lot of music, a lot of joy, a lot of humor, and so Fortis, started as a company that owned the distribution electricity utility in the province. It was the local utility, and the founders had this vision, and they decided we're gonna grow this company. We're good at running these companies, and through acquisitions, first across Canada, then into the U.S. and the Caribbean, they now it's now a $35 billion market cap North American business of really 10 different utilities. So that's the company I work for. We've got a fairly decentralized model. It's a really strong group of people running the parent company, and then, management teams at each of our utilities as well. And then my role is, Chief Legal Officer at Fortis. So, it starts with legal governance. We manage all the sort of capital markets, M&A, aspects of our work, and we through our model, most of the operational matters and sort of local regulatory matters are all dealt with primarily at our operating company level. So I love it because I have a small team of really good lawyers, and then each of our utilities has a GC who kind of has dotted line reporting to me. So it's like a broad scope across the group, and then very focused work with my team on the Rock.
So 10 the 10 general counsels in the utilities and the operating companies. Maybe if you just start there, I've got a couple of questions around that.
Sure. In our business, it's absolutely key that our utilities have a strong local presence, right? Nobody wants their, decisions about their electric and gas service to be made, in some faraway place by people who aren't kind of connected with the community. So our approach as we built out our company was always to maintain really strong local leadership who were the face of that company. And and we at Fortis were really good at, acquiring, sort of bringing a broader vision and strategy to the business. We're more than an infrastructure fund because we're also utility people. So we bring a strategic focus. We're delivery, not generation, so transmission and distribution, and we kind of and it's a great model for me because where I come from is the public company kind of corporate lawyer, M&A, capital markets, public company governance. And, the vast amount of legal work that happens in an operating company with commercial matters and, employment matters and everything else you're doing is largely, first and foremost, the responsibility of our GCs and their teams at their local utilities.
And I got all the stuff around the importance of the opcos having their individual general counsels and decision being made at a local level. Yeah. So Newfoundland as an area, then it must be like the poster child of Newfoundland then is the biggest or the listed business. It's interesting. We are not the biggest company there in terms of, employees. We're a 60-person head office, but yes, we have, a fairly prominent profile in the province, undoubtedly. Every year in Canada, there's an athletic competition for the best young athletes across the country called the Canada Games. And it was hosted in St. John's, Newfoundland this summer. And Fortis was a major sponsor. We, contributed to the building of a new athletic facility. And yes, we were all over that event, and it was a really great event. And that kind of thing makes you feel really good about, what you can do as a large company in a relatively small place. Yeah, absolutely. And then the operating companies and the utilities, are they spread presumably around North America, but are they in far-flung locations? Well, they are in the sense of we're in almost all corners of North America. We're in Western Canada. Alberta and BC are our largest two Canadian businesses, and our largest. Well, we have three businesses in the U.S. Mostly in Michigan, but across 8 states we have a company that is only transmission. So those transmission towers that go for thousands of kilometers across the Midwest. That's our biggest business. And then we're in Arizona, where we have a vertically integrated utility in Tucson,
And then in New York State, we have a utility that is both, electricity and gas, kind of a couple hours outside of New York City.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing. It's good overview. So we're here to talk lessons in your career and jump back into what got you into that role at Fortis. So
right.
if you could maybe start by just sharing your first lesson with me, that'd be great.
Sure. So I came to the role I'm in now after a 20-year career in private practice at a business law firm in Toronto. Called Davies, which was a great experience. And so a lot of my lessons come from kind of getting through that grind of the, business law, transactional focused, large firm experience that many, many lawyers who end up as GCs go through at the start of their career.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting to reflect on, when I look at the group of really talented, incredible people I started with, my class as it may be, and very few were still around. Kind of 5 years later, even fewer, 10 years later, people tend to go off and do other things, and the people who stick around, what's the differentiator? It's everybody's smart, right? Everybody works hard. Everybody is ambitious. So the key thing to me is, those are hard years, especially those first 5 years. And the key is really resiliency. You have to kind of survive that period in order to ultimately thrive in a career doing transactional corporate law.
Yeah.
And although you can take different paths to the GC role, that was my path, and I think it's a common path. So when I think about lessons, how to be resilient, I mean, we all come to that stage of life with our own inherent levels of resiliency.
Yeah.
But clearly it can be taught, and there are things you can do to improve, your resiliency. And what do I mean by that? Like, you're just in an environment where you have so little control over your workflow, over the demands put upon you. You don't have predictability. You can, have a quiet Wednesday, and by Thursday your life is completely out of control and you're canceling your vacations, right? That's how those years felt to me. Yeah. And I think they feel that way to everyone. Yeah. So how do you cope with that? Like, I had friends who, they're incredible lawyers and have had great careers, but they just could not handle psychologically that level of unpredictability in their lives. Yeah. And so they sought paths that didn't impose that on them. Uh-huh. But I sort of think about it like, you've got to think about, the Jason Bourne movies. He's dealing with unbelievable things cascading upon him and people trying to kill him, and he's just in complete control of his own emotions, and he's just problem solving. He is consistently problem solving. And that's a little bit like, you have to try to get to that mindset. Like, this is the environment I'm in. I can't control 90% of what's going on around me, but here's what I can control. And one of those things are, my emotions, and I'm just going to do kind of, the best I can. And I think the other thing I'd point out is, it feels like the stakes are so high, right? You're working on these deals that are really important to your clients, and and your performance seems like, oh my God, if I'm going to have a career, I really need to kill it on this and impress, the people I'm working with. Uh-huh. I had my first mentor at Davies, an amazing guy named Tom Smee. Right. I think this isn't necessarily completely true, but he helped me to manage my stress by saying, Jim, we're corporate lawyers. Even the worst fuck up can usually be fixed with money, right? No one's going to die if you don't nail this perfectly. And that wasn't like advice that was encouraging me like not to worry about getting it right or putting in my best effort. It was just like lower the stakes. Like, here's the context. Like, remember, you're not performing surgery here.
Yeah. That's true. Actually, yeah. You've got your peers from university and college and things. I shared a flat with, when I was a trainee lawyer, I shared a flat with a junior doctor. And it's like, different levels of skills. But yeah, all important. And I think that's good. In terms of your like earlier life, like anything into like built resilience for you, you feel, because you mentioned, I guess, nature, nurture, or what can be taught and what's just your life experience. Is there anything you felt was resilience building?
Well, I think we've all heard this. You're actually in some ways more resilient if you've encountered some failure along the way. If, a lot of people get to this job, they've gone through school and, their university, college, law school. They've probably done quite well. They may not have encountered a lot of adversity or failure. So to have, some partner, tear your work to shreds, in your first year of practicing law is really hard for a lot of people. And so I think you're actually a little bit better set up to cope with that and to deal with it positively if you've had a bit of adversity and a bit of failure to that point. So I'd say for me, different life things were helpful. I had a summer job through most of my university years, planting trees in Northern Ontario. And that's just a grind of a job. You kind of get up at 6 a.m. and they drop you in the forest somewhere with a whack of trees, and like it's just very rough land that's been logged, and you're supposed to plant trees for the next 12 hours, become pretty much by yourself. It's very solo work, and it's, in all weather, and the bugs are legendarily bad. And so if you can kind of survive that, like nothing seems that bad after that.
You need those. Yeah, you definitely need those character building jobs. Is that so? How did then you became your partner level? Assuming you maybe were involved in hiring and looking for people and talent, and likewise in your role now. But how do you? Is it something you specifically test for or look for in individuals that you might be hiring either into your team or elsewhere?
Yeah. I did a lot of recruiting and mentoring throughout my career, and continue to. And I think you can find amazing people almost, you can't narrow it down to this kind of profile leads to a great lawyer but I do look for those situations or those experiences where folks have dealt with adversity, or tough jobs or unglamorous jobs. So if someone has, been a waitress or those kind of jobs, I actually think those are incredibly important, right? Because you have to deal with all kinds of crap with a smile on your face, manage your own kind of emotions, and you learn a lot, right? Those customer service jobs that many of us have had are really valuable because, some senior partner is going to yell at you at some point, or some client's going to be rude or unreasonable, and those are things you encounter in those jobs, and you learn to deal with it. Yeah,
I think it's interesting, like hearing you talk about it with and reflecting. I used to hate those interviews where it was like, tell me about a time where you've been resilient or you've shown resilience. And I had loads of jobs when I was younger as well, like customer facing and labouring and things like that. I think at that stage, though, you maybe think that they're looking for more than the basics of, this was pretty character building, or I did this for summer, and it's like the type of traits that they are probably testing for. I think I found they were missed on me anyway. I thought I was probably trying to overcomplicate, reverse engineer some experience that I thought they were looking for the right answer for. But I think that's true. And then you spoke about people that were leaving the law. What's the most left field move that you've seen someone leave the profession and go off and do?
I think about the people who I went through sort of with in my cohort, and they kind of scattered into all kinds of different careers, right? Some just saw law as a stepping stone to finance. Some ran from corporate law and wanted to do something more predictable, like I said before, like with let's say an estates practice where you don't have clients sort of who need you on 30 seconds notice and destroy the next 3 months of your life. The most left field. I find it really interesting when people have something completely different in their lives than this legal career, which is all consuming, and you can let it be that, clearly. But going back to my original mentor, Tom Smee, he was like a very accomplished trombone player. And he I can remember we're working on, a deal, and we're just scrambling like crazy. And then he would kind of look at me and say, I actually have a performance tonight, so I'm going to duck out in 15 minutes. And he just fit it in. And it was a great lesson to me. And you don't have to let this absolutely own you. You do need to find some room in your life for these passions. And ultimately, I think he left law and pursued this entirely. But he did like slowly. He didn't do it mid-career, but eventually that's where he wanted to be in life. And good for him, right? Because if he had have said, "Oh, I've got this huge practice, I can't possibly pursue this passion of mine," he wouldn't have been able to do it full time at the end of his career. Yeah,
definitely. It's good to carve out that time.
I'd like to say a big thank you to our sponsor, Wordsmith AI, for sponsoring today's episode. As a legal tech company, Wordsmith AI share our belief that great legal teams can take amazing tools and transform the way that in-house legal teams work and operate. So to find out more about Wordsmith, head over to wordsmith.ai.
And then we met, we crossed paths at the ACC conference earlier this year, and it was the point around the partnership and getting to partner in a law firm and then moving in house, and you touched upon it there in terms of that role, and the first move in house happened at that point. There's so many people, I think, in that position where they get to partnership and then think that might be the next step, and it's sometimes quite challenging. How did it come around for you, and was it something that you had actively pursued, I guess?
Sure. I wasn't actively pursuing it. I was, quite happy in my role, but this is the way things develop. I had done a lot of work for Fortis. They were one of my major clients. They were very acquisitive, and they were always, buying companies and raising money. And so I was in their boardroom. I got to know their team, got to know the local management teams as they acquired these utilities. So it was a lot of interaction. I knew them well; they knew me well. So when they were looking to, hire a new GC, they didn't go. They didn't call a recruiter. They didn't do a process. They started with the CEO, who was, a friend at that point, saying, "Look, I've talked to the board, and it'd be great if you would be interested in this job. But would you be?" And I was really flattered, but I also was torn because I don't know. I was a lifer at my law firm, and I was very ensconced, and I wasn't looking to the idea of changing my career path seemed disorienting almost.
Right.
But then I thought about it, and this, for some of the reasons I said when I was talking about Newfoundland and this sort of the way this group of people had built their business, I did view them as kind of culturally different and special, and the way they had treated me as their external legal counsel was a little different. I'm not saying other people weren't incredibly nice and I didn't have other great clients. I did, but they really said, you're part of the family. You'd go to Newfoundland and you'd meet people's spouses, and the folks there took an interest in not just the work I did for them, but me and my family. It was a real people focus, and so I thought, if I'm going to do it, this is the time. It's a great opportunity, and it's the right company. It's the right group of people. So that was the impetus. I had these, not a young family, but I have 3 daughters, and they were all in high school. And I said, look, I don't think I can move my family to Newfoundland at this point. And this was pre-pandemic. So not everyone was as comfortable with remote work, but, Barry Perry, the CEO, said, look, we know you well. We can make this work. You can right. Stay based in Toronto and come back and forth and do that sort of thing. So it worked really well. But so talking about the transition, for me, it was comfortable from a culture perspective. I knew the people and I was comfortable with them. It wasn't like I was in a new organization that I didn't know anything about, but the role was clearly quite different. And I think what took me a little while to get my head around was, as a lawyer, you are a subject matter expert. You are an advisor. You come in, when you talk about something, you know more about it than anyone else in the room. And that's what your value is, in large part. And once you become a GC, at least, I came in at a senior executive level, and they're not looking to hire an in-house lawyer and for me to just do what I did for them before in this new job. That may happen at some levels and in some situations, but I think in most cases, when you come in at a senior level, they are hiring you because they think you can do a lot more than just deliver good legal advice. They think you can be a leader. You can be a good executive. You can, you have experience and judgment as a trusted advisor, and you can apply that to not just your area of core competency, law, governance, M&A, corporate finance, but broader business issues that come up all the time. And so at first I would be in meetings with people who had spent, their whole entire careers in the utility sector and knew way more than me. And I didn't have a lot to say. I'd wait for there to be an issue that I had, expertise on, legal, governance, et cetera. And that was, 10% of the discussion. So I didn't have a lot to say. And eventually, the CEO took me aside and said, Jim, just weigh in. We value your perspective, and you don't have to stick to your lane here. We're actually looking for you to weigh in on everything we're talking about. Our job is to run the business, and we all contribute to that. So even though we all have our areas of core competency, but what I realized was my job now is to be more comfortable getting into a space where I'm in a room. Other people are the experts who know more than me, but I'm asking the right questions, and I'm kind of connecting dots and synthesizing disparate information, and ultimately making a decision and providing guidance. And a lot of work goes along with that. You actually need to learn the business and, know of what you speak. But that's really a different role. And I can vividly remember, sitting with my CEO and talking to him about, an issue and giving him the pros and the cons. And he's listening and he says, okay, that's all great. So what's your decision? What should we do? And, as a external legal advisor, your job was done once you laid it all out, and it was the client's decision to make. Well, now I was the client. He was saying, I want you to make the decision. That's why you're here. And, that's both exciting, but also it introduces a different level of accountability that you may not have in your external legal role.
Yeah. I think that's a really good take. How do you encourage other lawyers or people in your team to do that, and to and when do you sort of see them as ready to move from lawyer to subject matter expert into that sort of leadership type position?
Yeah, I think it's I do mentor some of our GCs, at our utilities, and I can see you see the progression, right? They are very comfortable in reading the contract and getting into the issues, and my advice is, now that you're an executive, you need to stop doing that. You need to be very mindful about stepping away from what you're comfortable and good at doing. It's a great feeling to be the master of a specific area and be able to deliver, great input and, makes you feel confident and valuable and important. But at a certain point, you are not doing your job if you aren't stepping away from that detail, delegating it to others, ensuring they're learning how to be better at that job. And you are looking around the organization and ensuring that a whole broad set of things are moving in the right direction, and you are anticipating issues, and you are leading people. How do you encourage people to do that? I always tell them, think about what your CEO does when he or she walks into a room and how they conduct themselves. They aren't the expert necessarily on any of the topics. They might be sitting with all their subject matter experts, and they're listening, and they have knowledge of everything, but not at the level of depth of any particular subject matter expert on their team. But they ultimately understand things, and their skill is drawing out the right information and using their experience and insight and knowledge to ultimately, make good decisions for the organization and lead people, ensure they're getting the right direction and guidance, and keeping things big picture. So I say, watch your CEO, and that's how you have to be with your team. Bring it up a level, think big picture. Every time you retreat into the stuff you did in your previous role, you're not adding value to the organization or advancing your own career at that point. Yeah.
Difficult to wear the two hats, right? To be subject matter expert and then to expect to be viewed differently, but challenging in some environments, I guess, for lean teams and where there isn't that additional support. But I think that's solid, really solid advice. But we'll move on to your next lesson.
Sure. So I talked about resiliency. I want to talk about people because, the firm I joined out of law school was known as a transactional corporate firm. So the focus was not on building client relationships, although that clearly was part of it. But it was really, we were really told, just focus on being a great lawyer. Get your technical skills, need to be the focus of what you're doing. The other stuff, the client relationships, that will all come later. And in some ways that was great because it did mean that, there was this real focus on quality. You were able to really focus on developing as a very strong technical lawyer. But I guess what I sort of noticed was that gets you, to a certain point, but the people who took that advice to heart and literally never learned to be great with clients or great with people, started to suffer, right? They stopped advancing, and we all know this. And so, my advice on sort of as you're developing as a lawyer and developing your technical skills is to also really, think about, who you want to be, how you want to be seen. There's that question, like, would you rather be liked or respected? And I mean, you need to be both, right? But it's really important to be someone who's respected, right? That is a very durable thing. And that involves kind of, as you go through those difficult, challenging first, say, 5 years, kind of playing a long game. You're going to have some days that are bad. You're going to feel like, your career is like going off the rails because you made some kind of mistake or someone's not happy with you. Those are hard, bad days.
Yeah.
And, you just have to sort of, I think, allow yourself to sit with the emotion for a certain period of time, not too long. Yeah. But then park it, right? And move on. Take from it what you can. Like, there's always something to learn in those experiences, and you'll be better for it. It just feels terrible at the time, but you can't be sitting there a week later still just feeling terrible. You have to move on. And I think that sort of, who do you want to be? How do you want to be seen? Like, think about developing, be principled, be reliable, be a straight shooter, those kind of qualities that, so when people, even people who don't know you that well, if they know anything about you, if they've heard anything about you, it's that you are, you have integrity, that you are credible, that you don't, those things will carry you through. And that involves, so in addition to being focusing on your craft and working hard on the quality of what you're doing, is paying attention to the people things. And it's little things, right? It's being curious about people. It's asking about them, and eventually, you'll get people, if you're doing that, they will ask you about you, and you'll get to know people as people because, we all, you ask anyone at the end of their career what they're most proud of or what their best memories are in their career. It's always the people. It's not like, hey, that deal I worked on where I won an award and I've got the deal toy and it was so it is great. And you want to have those things, but that's not the most important thing at the end of the day, right? It never is when you ask people.
No, it's never. I mean, it's the thing that, is center to this podcast is the individuals that I speak to are in similar roles, those sort of aspirational roles, and the stuff they talk about is the people that help them get there, and things they've learned from others, and observing. It's a curious mindset that you've touched on there, and I think that's the area of interest for anyone listening to this. Is that versus speaking about, I guess, deal sizes and things which read well on a CV, but yeah, they're kind of,
the one of the most powerful things I realized was, if so many of us are very focused on the next step and managing up, right? We want that the people who are in charge of our advancement to be impressed with us, and that can consume our focus. But I found that like also focusing on the people sort of below me, right? The younger lawyers, the new lawyers, the students, was really powerful because I don't know. I found that in addition to just being connected with younger people as you get older is I think healthy, so we don't sort of get stratified in our demographic. But it's also incredibly powerful because you really make an impact, right? When you take an interest in a younger lawyer by mentoring or helping them through a rough patch, and frankly, it also helps you because we always had I had colleagues who when we were more senior at the firm, always complaining that I can never get help, right? Everybody's always busy. We need to hire more people. The young lawyers are just we don't have enough of them, and I can't get my deals staffed. Well, I could always get my deals staffed, right? Because if you were someone that you had taken a bit of time to develop a relationship, to support them, to guide them, that came back, 2x, 5x, 10x. Because those people want to work with you. They want to make they'll make it work. And it also inspires loyalty, I think, because one thing, we talk about is how do you make people feel loyal to the organization? And I don't think people are really loyal to organizations. They're loyal to people. And if you have an experience where someone senior, takes an interest in you, helps you out in a way that, makes a real impact, you feel loyalty to that person and ultimately to that organization because of that experience.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, I think it runs through everywhere. Yeah. Cool. Well, we'll move on to the final lesson.
Well, I think the final lesson was really just this kind of concept of when you're, as you get more senior, you kind of get to this point. It's wonderful, right? If you can get through those tough years. Yeah. You get to the point where you've really mastered your core practice and you're feeling confident, right? You're good at what you do. And that's a great feeling. But if you stay there, you will actually stagnate and you will, for most of us, you will, sort of feel like it's not quite as rewarding at a certain point. You've gone through this career where there's been all this growth and now you're not really growing. And the next cohort below you are really doing things as well as you do them pretty soon. And so you have to change. So whether it's staying in your law firm and being, more of a client person, a rainmaker, like you're going to change your focus a bit. Or like me and many people like me moving to, out of private practice and into the GC role. Yeah. And what both of those things involve to varying degrees is just getting out of your comfort zone, right? And being comfortable, being uncomfortable is the phrase I always use. Yeah. So when I talked about being, what I had to sort of figure out to be an effective GC. And it was really about, okay, I can't be the person I was before and, provide the kind of insights I did before because they want something different from me now. I'm in a different role. And frankly, that's why I'm here. It is more of a business role. I've now taken on different portfolios in addition to legal governance. I'm overseeing sustainability and government relations. And that is, it's really odd as a lawyer to say, oh, I'm going to just do something that is doesn't relate to my education and my years of experience. and I'm not even necessarily the best at it in my company, but I need to, I need to just be comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And that's like, once you get comfortable with being uncomfortable, then you can, you still have to put in the work. You still have to be competent. You still have to have, develop that expertise, but you realize, okay, that's how you take the next step. That's how you can be like a great leader, CEO-like in your role as as the GC. I think your board and your CEO want you to be that broad business leader who can bring, judgment, experience, navigate gray zones. That's what you really bring along. You probably got some great people on your team who have the requisite legal skills that the company needs. You need to bring more, and that means being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
It's a good one. And when you moved from that first stage of discomfort, moving from law firm partner to GC, how did you? Any tips for anyone in that position? Like for the first 90 days, like did you have a plan going in? Was there anything you might look back on and change if you were to do that again?
I probably would have, if I was doing it over again, been a little more mindful about this. This is kind of something I think I intuitively knew all of this, but I wasn't as sort of specific about actually addressing it. So I kind of navigated it, but it probably took a little longer than it should have. And, because I felt this need, like, I think one of the things as lawyers, we don't want to talk about things we aren't fully experts on, right? Like it felt very uncomfortable to me to talk about issues where I hadn't done all the work. I wasn't 100% prepared. Like as your role grows, you realize, well, you're probably never going to be the expert or the person with the most depth on every one of these topics. You have to just sort of accept that. So what I would do differently is sort of, embrace that notion and then look for opportunities to step out of my comfort zone and just practice in that space. So, speaking at conferences on industry topics that aren't necessarily legal topics, like that seems very uncomfortable for someone who's been a lawyer who speaks from a place of expertise their entire career. But when you're an executive and a business leader in a company, people look at you and what they want from you is a broader perspective and not just your sort of core competency expertise. So I would have just been a little more mindful, a little bit more deliberate, and sought out those opportunities sooner. I got there, but I think that's what if your eyes are wide open and you're planning for it, you can kind of probably deal with it a bit better. Yeah,
that's good. I think good advice. Being deliberate, I think is, having a plan, whether it goes to plan or not. I think it's always, it's always good to have the aspiration and the North Star, right, for what you want. Brilliant. Thank you for sharing. So I'm finishing by asking a bit of a left field question. But if you or your team, or you and your team, were awarded if you and your team were awarded the top legal team in the world at whichever legal conference that might be,
I look forward to that happening.
I know. We'll get the nominations in off the back of this. But if you had a walk-on song, what would it be for yourself?
So for myself, I think I'm going to go with a band and a song that is not. This band is not well known outside of Canada, but Canada's most iconic band. They're actually from my hometown, Kingston, Ontario. And in Canada, they are legendary. They're called the Tragically Hip. And they were like a big part of me, like my life growing up and my generation. And even like my kids love them. Like they have a real, they developed an emotional connection with their fans and many Canadians. So I have to go with the Tragically Hip. And they sing about Canada and hockey and our history. And, you know, Canada is not a nation of patriotism and grand mythology. So I think Canadians just really appreciated that they brought this sensibility to their music and their songs, and, you know, made us feel proud and sang songs about us, right? And it was great, but with universal themes. So, you know, Scott, I think you should give them a listen, and you'll like it too.
I'll give them a listen. I'll check them out. Boost their Spotify ratings in the UK. But yeah, always looking for that. Always looking for that type of recommendation. And we were speaking before we came on. So music is music something? Are you a big concert goer? You were at something last night.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as big a concert goer as some, but I really do love live music. It's something that, you know, it gives you that emotional kind of feeling that you just don't get from listening or watching, on videos or on audio. So, yeah, last night I was at a Lumineers concert, and it was. Just that feeling. It was an outdoor venue. We were down by the lake, and it's the communal experience of it. It's being with all these other people, and we're all singing along, and it's really good.
All about the people. Back to lesson two. Comes full circle.
Nice.
Well, it's a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you for sharing that experience, and I think will certainly resonate. Your career journey and the lessons that you've learned along the way resonate with people, both in house and at that stage in private practice where they might be looking to make that switch. So, thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Scott. I enjoyed it.
Great speaking.
I'd like to say a big thank you to our sponsor, Wordsmith AI, for sponsoring today's episode. As a legal tech company, Wordsmith AI share our belief that great legal teams can take amazing tools and transform the way that in-house legal teams work and operate. So to find out more about Wordsmith, head over to wordsmith.ai. So that wraps up another episode of Lessons I Learned in Law, powered by Harriet Brown In-House Legal Recruitment. Now, I share these stories each week to help lawyers of all levels, and both in private practice or working in-house. And it doesn't matter if you're early in your career or you're already leading a team. Learning from your peers or from those who have walked in your shoes before, then this is the show for you. If you find it useful, I would love it if you could share it with your colleagues or share it with your network, or drop us a message just to let us know that you're listening and that you're out there. Feedback really helps us grow the show and take it in the direction that gives the most value to you, our listeners. So until next time, I've been Scott Brown. Thank you.